What the worst I don't fit in here experience you've ever had? I went to a classical concert in a fancy manor house of sorts at the border between Scotland and England. They served some food in between the acts of the concert, where you would sit at small tables to have it. I was the only one below the age of like 60 and everyone looked very posh. Tried making some small talk at one of those tables, but the old ladies with their hats on seemed to be not very keen on talking with a peasant like me. You could really see it in their faces. In 2007 I went to what I thought was my first AA meeting. It was being held at a church, and when I walked into where the meeting was supposed to take place there was 5 to 6 other men sitting down. I took a seat, and after a couple of moments pass, the meeting starts. If my memory is correct, I was asked to introduce myself. So I said, my name is, and I'm an alcoholic. After a few moments, one of the men let me know that I was at a Sex Addicts Anonymous meeting. I apologized and left. Felt really weird about it at the time, but now I just laugh about it. Username checks out. I'm not a clever man. Hi, my name is Matt, and I'm an alcoholic. Hi Matt, we are not alcoholics. This is the Sex Addicts meeting. Well, nice to meet you. Pretty much. Went on the company ski trip, which sounds posher than it actually is, and we had to pay for it out of our wages. Had to sit on a dinner table with the heads of the company and some other high-up people from different companies, and the stuff they were talking about in terms of leisure activities were well out of my league. When you try to join the conversation and you get a patronizing smile from one of them who doesn't engage with you, the conversation dries up pretty quickly. Finished my dinner and fucked off to the bar. If you're paying for it out of your wages, it's not a company ski trip, it's your own ski trip that your company is invading, lol. In fact, in the US, your employer cannot make an out-of-pocket trip be mandatory. If you're a W-2, it's either paid for, or it's optional. Things can be optional, but still have your career prospects somewhat contingent on attending in practice though. I'm a white guy who's into alt-rock, and I had some Jamaican friends at work. They invited me to a basement party they called a splash. Exactly like what you see in the Scene Paul Get Busy video. I loved it and everyone was very cool, but man did I feel like I stuck out. My first holiday in foster care was Christmas 2010. I was 14 years old, a freshman in high school. I missed my family and I didn't know anyone there, except my foster parents. I felt completely like an alien amongst 50 people. I was young, scared, and alone. I went on my phone and my foster mom raised her voice and told me to get off. That made me snap, and I started tearing up. So I went outside in the cold to cry by myself, so I wouldn't make a scene. I cried behind the car in the dark and the snow that fell a few days prior. This old man comes outside and calmly talks to me. He tells me that he used to be in foster care too. I don't remember what he said exactly, but he made me laugh and feel a little better. That old man turned out to be who I would call Grandpa Ernie a few years down the road. He passed away a couple springs ago. He always made sure everyone felt welcomed, and always would break tension/silence with a joke that made everyone laugh. He went through his own hell growing up, and he did his best to make sure no one else had to. Rip Ernie. He seemed like a good dude. I'm in my late 20s, and going to the same clothing stores I've been going to for over a decade, seeing 12-plus-year-old girls, feeling lost, not knowing where to shop. My casual clothes have literally not changed since I was a teen. My professional wardrobe is so different from my casual clothes that it looks like two different guys in my closet. How many guys are actually in the closet at your place? The causal guy got out of the closet. I watched a lot of Pokemon when I was like 8. I went to a local anime convention, and I was so confused and awkward. Everyone was in cosplay and talking about anime, and I just sat there looking at my Pokemon cards all depressed. Yoo, that sounds so sad. All the anime cons I've been to always had a TCG area where you likely could have had fun. Hell, the last one I went to also had a DS Pokemon tournament next to all the cosplay stuff going on. You had really bad luck with yours. I once interviewed for a job and was taken around the office to meet everyone and see how things worked. But it was one of those types of places where they do morning cheers. Everyone is ultra peppy and cutthroat. It was a sales job with competitive territories, and the energy was just too much. As an introverted, laid back and uncompetitive worker, I 100% did not belong in that environment. Honest question. How do you manage to build a career in sales being introverted? Just like everybody else. The difference is that you end up physically exhausted every day. Too real, man. Wanted to learn to play guitar. Found out about a class for beginner sessions for adults. Call up. They say yeah, come along, we have a mixed group and we will see you in the morn. Great. Turn up to this little church, like building, and head in. Guy says you must be me, 27 to 28 at time. Take a seat and we will get going in a minimum. Please note I'm first to arrive, and the seats were tiny, but I didn't think anything of it at the time, just assumed it was what was available. Next minimum, a group of small children rush in and take their places, about 5 to 6 years old with their guitars. Teacher starts taking the lesson. I'm OBV feeling awkward as I'm like Tom Hanks in Big, and wanting to get out as soon as poss, but too polite to just get up and walk out. Teacher then announces that we will be getting up on stage at the end to show what we've learned. Please note all these little shits are 10x better than me, but I'm committed now and maybe it won't be so bad. Until the door opens and all of the parents walk in to watch the show. So there I was, sitting on a little chair with my knees higher than my head, strumming along to some tune I couldn't play, surrounded by 5 to 6 year old and parents looking at me with that face you know wants to laugh. That was pretty inconsiderate of them to say it's a mixed group, when really it's just a bunch of kids. As soon as they saw you, they should have let you know the situation. And to have you play for strangers at the end was just dragging the awkwardness out. Yeah, I kind of feel like this was the teacher/advert's fault, not ops. Recently moved to China due to work. China is fine and all. Food is exceptionally nice, and the general cost of living is significantly lower. Although I do speak some Mandarin, and am somewhat familiar with China due to my mother being Chinese, I do often feel the differences, like how alien this culture here is to me. It's a very odd feeling, seeing all these people that look the same as me, yet completely different. I'm Indian but was born and raised in the US, and I visited India when I was 7 and again when I was 18. I don't remember the first visit too well, but the second time, I had the exact same feeling you described. My mom was born in a village. And if my dad hadn't decided to get his masters in the US, or hadn't met my mom, I probably would have had a completely different life. In southwestern Australia, I was there working for a bit, and went out with some locals. We were walking home from the bar when one of them said he wanted to go for a bit of a longer walk. So we detored around another block. Suddenly we were walking through the bush, and then we pop out the other side near this sketchy house. A really sketchy dude comes out, looks at me, and asks one of the guys who I am. They say I'm Canadian, and he asks me a few questions, presumably to hear my accent. Then they hand him a few $100s, and he hands them a few small bags of drugs. On the way home, the guys I'm with stop, open up one of the bags and smash the contents up on a rock and snort it. I politely decline. Suddenly everyone I'm with is high on meth. Once I was familiar with the area we were in, I got the fuck out of there. Yeah, country Australia has real bad ice issue in some places, especially in the more impoverished rural towns. To be fair, there's fuck all to do out in the bush with shitty satellite internet. My mum and dad have been divorced since I was 8 years old, so 20 years. My dad has a girlfriend who he's recently moved in with. She has adult children and young grandchildren. Anyway, it was my dad's birthday a little while ago, and I went over to see him, and over the time I was there, more of his girlfriend's family turned up. I didn't fit in. My dad has kept us very separate until the last 12 months, and I've worked really hard on my relationship with my dad over the last few years, but had thought he wasn't able to give me the relationship I wanted to have with him, and I'd come to terms that is how he is, except it's not how he is, at all, because he has that relationship with his partner's children and grandkids. And I sat there feeling ridiculously out of place. I didn't fit in. He only lives 25 minutes away, but they've all made very little effort with me, but they all see each other a lot. I didn't fit in. And I left after 4 hours, driving back to my home with tears in my eyes, wondering why I was so upset. And then I realized, it's because, once again, it's just another situation where I don't fit in. And I'm not gonna lie, that little 8-year-old girl inside of me cried a lot for a week or so. It was by far the worst I don't fit in here experience I've had yet. It broke my heart a little, actually. Sorry for rambling. I guess I kinda kept that to myself. I hope you find some peace with your relationship with your dad. I would have cried as well. A friend invited me to a party at his friend's place. Everyone was dressed in animal masks, not as in furries. This was like black tie formal, but with people wearing realistic giraffe masks. My friend seemed confused that I was dressed normally. I do not speak to him anymore. Semicolon. I still don't know what the deal with that place was. I would be so pumped to wear like a ball gown and a dollar store flamingo mask. It sounds so cryptic and hilarious. I'd be more concerned with walking into an orgy unintentionally. What's the password? #OOOOOOR I just dropped everything to pursue a career in art. It's been my dream to open up a shop and to just make things and paint. I've been drawing all of my life and I'm honestly not bad. A few weeks ago, I joined the local artists collective. The first meeting we were showing our art and my heart dropped. Everyone had these gallery level social justice pieces and there I was with my greeting card and wedding art. I've always struggled with confidence and imposter syndrome. But that hit me hard just how out of my league this group was. I'm staying in it because I think it will challenge me to expand and grow. But damn do I feel incompetent every time I see them. It's always discouraging for me to see other people's art too, but most artists will feel that way. There's a chance that half the people there found your art better than their art too. I came to Germany in 2017 with my Master of Science in Environmental Sciences from Hungary. A job to find was hard, so I had a plan B. I took a job by Deutsche Bahn, German Railways. I don't really know how to say it in English, but basically I control train stations and set routes for trains. Called Fahrdienstleiter in Germany, look it up if you want to. So I took the schooling. I had my first station. And as an apprentice or something like that I had to go to the tracks and inform people about where their train comes. I felt pretty shitty. It's normally not part of the job. All the passengers were well-suited men and women. Lots of offices around here, and I was in a dirty safety west. I just felt that I belonged to them, not here. In the end I found myself here. My next job will be at the central station in Nuremberg, which is a pretty big deal. Like a flight control tower with trains. I fucking love trains. My next job will be at the central station in Nuremberg, which is a pretty big deal. Like a flight control tower with trains. I fucking love trains. I hope your new job brings you all the happiness in the world. I'm expat Dutch, meaning I was born there, and have a passport. Moving to the Netherlands as a teenager for the first time did not go well. Teenagers are assholes. But even more so, if you are any kind of foreign, and don't speak the language perfectly. Oof. I'm about to be in a similar situation. Hopefully it's different in this country and age group. Going to back to school night. I'm a single dad and not wealthy. Well, not financially. My kids go to a school in a very affluent neighborhood. The dad to mom ratio was roughly 3/10. They all had very expensive clothes and jewelry. Here I'm in my shorts and a t-shirt. Most of the cars were Lexus, BMW, Mercedes, any were Tesla, Maserati, or some other exotic. Luckily my kids don't seem to feel it, nor are they mistreated, so that's good. Keep working, King. Of course. Thank you. I'm a college professor. Got my first job out of grad school. Quit at the end of the second year. Found out while quitting that they were about to fire me. It was one of the 10 largest universities in the USA. Today I teach at a tiny liberal arts college. Been there over a decade, and they vote me Professor of the Year an average of once every 3 years. Here I fit. There I didn't. There was big, research driven, prestige hungry. Here, they want me to take good care of the students. That I can do. I love my job. Why were they going to fire you? Publish or perish, I'm guessing. I have mild autism and I decided to try doing an autism meetup with other autistic people. Everyone else was way more severe than me. It was fun and an interesting perspective, but it wasn't my kind of place. My mom tried joining a Facebook group for moms of kids with neurological disabilities, and had a similar experience. Everyone was the parent of a severely autistic child who would never live on their own, and there she was with a child with ADHD and OCD. Also she was the only mom who didn't feel me having challenges ruined her life. Walking into the cafeteria, food in hand, looking around trying to find a place to sit. Or alright guys, get in partners for this project, and you just sit there with your eyes glued to the desk. Having 2 friends in one class and they choose each other, and your teacher says no groups of 3 is the worst feeling. Work mostly. I hate my job because of the toxic environment and coworkers, and in large groups of people where I don't know anybody. I've always felt like I fit in 2 very different crowds. I'm very at home with a group of redneck friends out camping and hunting for the weekend. And I can fit in at formal business dinner type settings. One time I was invited to what I thought was the latter by my employer. I'm very middle class, but I was completely out of my element. It was a silent charity auction for disabled children. They had various donated items up for auction. You could add your name to a list with your bid, and someone else could add a higher bid under that. The cheapest thing they had to bid on was a Barbie doll. It was $375. I didn't bid on anything. Later that evening I was talking to a coworker who was a friend of the owner. He told me he won a horse. Yeah, didn't fit in. I can't imagine being in a point in life where I can bid on a surprise horse. They are so expensive to feed, let alone house properly due to the space they need. The ball at my college the week before graduation. People have compared it to college prom. I never wanted to go, but I won a free ticket in a raffle, so I couldn't pass up saving $90. Doesn't mean I fit in there though. You should sold it for like $50 cheaper, and you profit. I was one of 2 winners, and when it came time to buy the tickets, online there was some sort of strict ID verification so only I and this other person could get them. I went to an alternative school, everyone was goth, and I was just a normal kid that was playing sports and stuff, and wearing colorful clothes with kids in all black. Sounds like an Opposites Day dream sequence. Was it an art school? No, it was a charter school. I don't think my mom knew like all the kids were goth. It was in middle school, but I made some friends still, but I didn't really fit in if you were to just glance over at a group of us. Are you typing this on the nav screen in your car by any chance? Took me 2 years of working at a place to realize just how faced and toxic most of my former co-workers were, except for a handful. Realized most of them didn't like me, so I left. Me, right now, it's part of what led me to seeing that I want to go to grad school and not continue working in this field. After work party with my colleagues, we were just eating some snacks before heading home, but I realized I had nothing in common with any of them. I never wished so hard to have said no to something I was invited. I worked at a place that encouraged a Friday after work beer and munches gathering in some unused office space. All I could think about was drinking on an empty stomach and driving home in rush hour traffic. I was older by 10 years than the average worker and married, but no kids. Management was older than me. They were younger, single, and no kids. They had empty apartments to avoid. I had spouse and cats to go home to. I don't even like beer. That's just it. No, I don't want to play poker every week, because going home to my fiance and dog is significantly more enjoyable. I had just moved to a school, and I had been put with a buddy to sit with and to show me around school. At that time I had straightened my hair a lot and I'm very light-skinned. Well, I sat with my buddy and her friends and they legit started saying stuff like look at that uglier backslash beaner and hey n backslash or was at my n backslash they need to go back to their huts in Africa. And it appeared to me that they either didn't know I was black or wanted to make it very clear that they didn't like me. Yikes. Who would want to be around that? No thanks. I had just started a waitressing job, and while I was waiting to interview I actually saw a grower of the wait staff looking at me and whispering to each other. I needed the job, so I didn't care. In hindsight I should have got up and walked right out. I was hired, but failed the menu test and had to retake it. The manager told them, and they started bugging me about it. I worked there part-time for about 2 years and they would bully and harass me every chance they got. I was a good worker, polite, and helped them any way I could, but they still ostracized me. That was 4 years ago, and I still can't wrap my head around what could have made them hate me so much. Seeing as their bullshit started before they got to know you with a whispering while you waited for the interview, I'd say their crap had nothing to do with you and everything to do with them being a pack of mean-spirited, maladapted morons. I was at a low point in my life. Unemployed, no support, hungry and dressed in worn working class clothing. I was out with a buddy who had as little class as I did at the time. We somehow had managed to find a few dollars and figured we should go have a drink. Unfortunately the place we went to was full of sailors. Not burly longshoremen, not popey and not shifty-eyed cutthroats. No, these were the kind of sailors that owned and raced yachts. We go in, walk out to the patio and stop. Everyone there was white. Everyone there was dressed in white. The entire patio went quiet, and literally everyone stared at us. We immediately turned tail and left. I think we ended up sharing a bottle of cheap wine under a bridge that day. Funny thing is I bet we had much more fun under that bridge than we would have had surrounded by all those clean young snarticles. Snarticles. Bravo. At any gathering of my ex-in-laws, they drank like alcoholics, which many of them are, and I don't drink at all. The more drunk they got, the less I fit in. They had 3 topics of conversation. 1. How drunk they are. 2. How drunk they were last weekend. And 3. How drunk they plan to get next weekend. These were grown adults with kids. As someone who doesn't drink at all either, listening to people just talking about those 3 things gets really old really fast. Fortunately I now know a lot of people who have more interesting things to say than that.